3 strategies for dealing with a narcissist. So in this video, I'm going to give you 3. There's, of course, many, many more than that, but I can't give you all of them at one time in one video, or we would be here a really long time. But I will tell you that the third one is one that actually I don't think I've ever shared before. I do these videos quite a bit, and I think this particular tip just kind of came to me as I was preparing this video. And honestly, I was like, I don't think I've ever said that before. So if you've watched me a lot, you're going to get a new little nugget in this one at the end of the video. The other 2 might kind of be a reminder for you if you've been watching me for a while. If you're new to my channel, then obviously this is probably going to be a huge help for you, all 3 of these tips. And so stick with me. We're going to dive in. I'm going to give you 3 of my best strategies for dealing with a narcissistic person. Because when we're in court, honestly, I always tell people you have the therapeutic side of trying to deal with the narcissism, but then you have the court side of trying to deal with the child custody. And you have to make sure those 2 things are working together because they overlap. And a lot of times strategies were given by therapists or whatever, the courts don't like. And sometimes strategies that the courts think are okay, a therapist goes, you should never do that with a narcissist, right? So it really gets quite conflicting. And I always tell people it's the reason I have a job, because there is this middle ground here where these 2 things meet, and we have to understand how they work together and what strategies work in dealing with the situation, but also will not get us into hot water with the court. And that is always the balancing act that I'm trying to create when I am coaching clients. So if you like this content, you find it helpful, don't forget to hit like on the video. Also subscribe to my channel so that you get notified when new videos are released. And if you'd like to learn more about my coaching services, there is a link in the description that you can click to do that. 3 strategies for dealing with a narcissist. The first one is just honestly, this is so basic and you're going to be like, really? And I will tell you that we use it with our kids, or we should be. Like, this is the number 1 strategy to deal with a child too. And it is disengage. It's like just refuse to participate, right? Refuse to participate in the conflict, refuse to participate in the drama, refuse to participate in the tantrum, if you will. Whatever is going on, walk away, metaphorically, right? It's like, I give the example of when our 3-year-old toddler is having a fit on the grocery store floor, okay? If your child's older than 3, you've had that experience. I promise you know what I'm talking about. If your child's less than 3, well, it's coming, trust me. So when a child is doing that, what do? You walk away. The more that you engage that, the more that you try to appease the child, the more that you try to discipline the child, deal with it, anything, the more you're feeding that tantrum, because attention is the currency. That is what they are going for. And they don't even care if it's negative attention. When a 3-year-old is having that tantrum, they are trying to get your attention. And that is exactly what a narcissist is doing. They are threatening, they are bullying, they are manipulating, they are being dramatic, they are sending you paragraphs, they are doing all of the things, right, in an effort to get your attention. So as soon as you respond, bing, I got your attention, right? Even if it's a negative response, even if it's you can't speak to me that way, I still got your response. And honestly, the way narcissists work, if they know something bothers you, they're going to do it more. That's the whole dynamic. And that's why a lot of times people feel like, oh, well, if I just, if I tell them like, please don't talk to me that way. And, that's very upsetting when you say those things. And, with a normal sympathetic person, yes, we're going to go, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I won't do that again. That's not what a narcissist does. A narcissist goes, oh, cool. Now I know what gets to you. Now I know which button to push, right? So you're telegraphing where your buttons are. So don't do that. All right. And how do you do that? You disengage, you walk away. You don't even have the conversation. Okay. Now, I will say that if you're in a parenting app and the court has ordered you to respond within 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever it may be, then yes, sometimes you have to respond. But what you do is you look at that message, you say, are there any questions here that I need to answer? You answer just those questions, which should only be a sentence or two. You ignore all the long paragraphs and you answer it, and that's it. If there's just long paragraphs and there's literally no question in there, or some ridiculous question like, what are you, stupid? Right? They always say something like that. Then you just write back and say, received. That's a response. Or you can say, I'll do some, if it's like, oh, I want to use these therapists, I want to blah, 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 and it's all this stuff. Oh, I'll do some research on these and get back to you. Right? That is a response. That is responding to it within 24, 48 hours. Now, I wouldn't use that I'll get back to you thing for everything, because that can start to get you in hot water, right? You're just delaying. But if it is something that you do need to research or you need a little more time, you can certainly do that. Or you need to call your coach, right? I have clients that do that. It's like, I got to call my coach. I need to make an appointment. Let me just put this off. I have people that do that. But for the most part, you either just want to simply answer the questions, purely logistical, no justifying, no explaining, no emotions, no nothing. Just answer the question, yes or no. And that's it. Or you just say received. Okay. The disengagement is really, again, extinguishment, like we practice with a toddler. And it's just a way of completely turning around and walking away from the situation. I have parents that will go to exchanges and they're like, the other person always tries to engage me at an exchange when the child is present. And some people are like, well, I don't want to be rude and I don't want to be, it's like, nope, this is the time and place for you to be rude. So you just say, I have to run. I'm so sorry. So sorry. I have to run. Please send me a message in the app, right? So sorry. Got to go. Please send me a message. Please shoot me a text, whatever mechanism you guys use for communication. I'm sorry. I don't have time right now. Can you just send me a message? And you just turn around, walk away. And they can keep blah, 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 if they want to. You turn around, walk away. Send me a message. That's it. Just do not engage. I especially don't want you engaging in discussions in front of the child. That's like the worst thing you can do. Second thing is documentation, right? I talk about this a lot. I have people use an Excel spreadsheet. You just, date, time, subject, your notes, cross-reference any references, messages, pictures, recordings, whatever you did, right? And just put your notes, your thoughts down. And really, you want to do that for a couple of reasons. One, you never know when you're going to need to go back and reference that. That could come up 6 months from now when you go into court and you don't remember anymore, right? So it's good to have those notes. Also, it helps you start to recognize patterns of behavior in your narcissistic parent. And honestly, or your high conflict parent, even if it's not narcissism, but honestly, those patterns of behavior, that's what the court's looking for. Court doesn't care about a one-off. Court's going to give them grace about a one-time thing or even sometimes 2 times. But if something's happened 6 times in a 4-month period, that's a pattern of behavior. That's going to get the court's attention. But you're not even going to know that pattern's happening or how often it's happening if you're not documenting and keeping some kind of record. And I want you to be as specific as you can. Like at 2:03 p.m., this thing happened. Here's who was called. Here's how many times this was said. Here's where we were located. Here's the temperature outside that day. Here's the, I'm being a little facetious, but numbers, data, the court finds those types of things credible, right? Don't say every time I walked around the car, the other parent stepped in front of me and wouldn't let me get to the child. You say, I made 3 attempts. I walked around the car 3 times to try to get the child out. And the other parent refused to allow me, right? Whatever it was. So again, concrete numbers, data, all that kind of thing. The third thing, okay, now this is the one that sort of popped into my head today. And that is you have to develop thick skin. Okay, you have to. So many people say to me, well, they said this. Well, the other parent is saying this. Well, they're writing this in the messaging. Well, they're saying this in court. Well, they're saying. I don't care. I don't care what they say. Them saying it doesn't make it true. And it'll be like, well, they're trying to make a record. Oh, well. Don't worry about what they're doing. You're putting too much energy into that. Worry about you. Worry about your child. Just because they say something doesn't make it true. I've got a few dad clients where mom is accusing them of being sexually inappropriate with a child. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen. That certainly does happen. I don't think this is happening with any of these dads. They've been clients of mine for a long time, but it does happen, of course, unfortunately, in this world. But somebody just saying that isn't enough proof. Like, for goodness sake, I've got people on the other side of it where we really do think something's going on with the child. And despite multiple attempts and all these different pieces of evidence and all this stuff, you still can't get any action on it. You still can't get the court to intervene or cause the child to stop seeing the other parent. So it's usually much more complex than just somebody saying something, right? And again, it goes back to what I talk about, where do actions match words, right? If we're a year into the case and somebody's throwing out this accusation that they've never been brought up before, that's not going to be very credible for the court, right? The court's going to be like, okay, well, what's been going on the last year, because you've never brought that up before, right? It's not credible. Okay. So, and a lot of times we're emotionally reacting because obviously that's a very serious allegation, and it attacks who we are at our core identity, and it also attacks, us as a parent. And so it can be very emotionally difficult to deal with those types of false allegations. And I'm kind of giving you an extreme one, but my point is that whatever they're going to write, whatever they're going to say, no matter how bad a parent they accuse you of being or whatever, it's like, you don't have to prove anything to them. They're not your judge and jury, okay? The judge is your judge. That's the opinion we need to be worried about. And a little note about a judge is never going to sit up there and say, oh, I'm so sorry for what you've endured, or wow, you're really being a jerk. A judge is never going to say that. I think sometimes that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping for some kind of validation, some kind of closure, some kind of something. But honestly, you don't get that. Why? Because a judge's job is to be neutral. A judge's job is to absorb everything that's said and go, okay, here's what we're going to do. And a lot of times when here's what we're going to do comes out, somebody goes, oh, it's because so-and-so said that. No, it's usually not. Usually not. When I sit down and break it down, it's usually not. Usually I can understand why a judge said what they said. And it usually is not the thing that the client is associating it to. Okay. So that's all emotional when we're interpreting things through our own lens. If you'd like more help navigating these types of things and understanding these types of situations and dealing with narcissistic people, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's information on that page on my group coaching programs for moms and for dads, and information on my VIP one-on-one customized coaching packages. You can go over, check that out, and I will talk to you guys soon.
We'll grow in number.